very warm welcome from sunny Prague to our webinar on high-speed rail lines in the Czech Republic. My name is Roman Rauch. I'm the Austrian Trade Commissioner in Prague, and in the next 50 minutes or so, together with our two Czech experts and colleagues from my office, we will inform you about Czechia's plans to further upgrade its rail network. As you may have noticed, the webinar is held in English as our Czech experts speak English. So why do we tackle this issue of high-speed rail lines at this particular point? It's quite simple. We all know that the Czech Republic lies in the heart of Europe, and a couple of major transport routes cross through the country. Czechia has been working on its high-speed rail network for quite some time, but now these projects come into a very interesting phase, in particular when it comes to its design, spatial planning issues, public consultation, financing, and the construction as such. So now we think it's a good point to actually start tackling this issue closer and more in detail. This webinar will last, as I said, for around 50 minutes to an hour. It really depends on your questions. A quick run through what we have in store for you. At first, we have one presentation. It will be about high-speed lines projects. The presentation will be held by Mr. Merta, who is an expert from Správa železnic, the Czech state rail infrastructure company. He will briefly present himself more in detail later on. So after this one presentation, we try to keep this webinar as interactive as possible. So part two will be an interview conducted by my colleague from our Brünn office, Martin Jacques, and he will speak with Mr. Merta and Mr. Čurilla from law firm Havel Partners, who will give you more details on legal and technical things side of things. The third part will be a Q&A session. It will be handled by my colleague Elisabeth Mindelberger from our Prague office, again together with our two Czech experts. As I said, we try to keep this webinar as interactive as possible, so please use our Q&A platform Slido for your questions and comments. You see a QR code on your screen, so please sort of photograph it, use your mobile, and then you can punch in your questions, and we will answer them as closely and as detailed as possible in the third part of our today's webinar. I've already briefly mentioned our two Czech experts, Mr. Merta, Mr. Čurilla. Here you can actually see them on the screen. They will present themselves in a minute. And this already brings me to Mr. Merta, who will give us the initial presentation on high-speed rail line projects in the Czech Republic. Please, Mr. Merta.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to briefly introduce you our project of high-speed lines in the Czech Republic. In the beginning, I would like to also introduce myself and our company. Let's say Správa železnic, as Mr. Rauch said before, is the National Railway Infrastructure Manager. It's similar to über, Infrastruktur, but it's not the part of the holding. It's fully independent state organization or company. Our high-speed lines construction management unit is responsible for the preparation of the high-speed lines in the Czech Republic, and the technical division, which I'm responsible for, is responsible for setting up and supervising compliance with the technical concept of future Czech high-speed lines during the design, construction, maintenance, and also operation. For example, we are preparing standards and regulations. We are setting up RAMS processes, Also, we are setting up the processes for testing and commissioning of future lines, etc. At the same time, the economic issues of high-speed lines, such as investment budgets, budget operating costs, preparation of PPP projects, are also under the responsibility of my division. So, what does our project look like? Our project is part of the TEN-T network. The TEN-T regulation made by the European Commission is now in the end of the revision process, and our high-speed lines will become part of the core or extended core network, like in a few weeks. So it means that our project has to be ready for operation before some parts before 2030 and some parts before 2040. What are the goals of our project in the European or Central European scope? It's the travel time from Berlin to Vienna in circa 4 hours. Now it takes over 8 hours via Prague, or the same time via Nuremberg. But our project and the projects in Germany and Austria will ensure the travel time in 4 hours. 2 hours from Prague to Vienna and 2 hours from Prague to Berlin. We are also cooperating in the group of Visegrad 4 countries, which means the connection between Budapest, Bratislava, Brno, Warsaw, and the connection to Prague. And also we cooperate with quite a faraway project, Rail Baltica, which would like to connect to the Central Europe and via the Czech Republic to the South Europe and Austria. Our project consists of the proper high-speed lines that are the red lines on this map. And also there is a complementary network of modernized railways for 200 kilometers per hour, which are the blue parts of this network. And what's the current state of preparation of our project? The feasibility studies for the backbone from Dresden to Prague, Brno, and to Ostrava and Poland, with branch from Brno to south in direction of Vienna and Bratislava. The feasibility studies are done, they are finished with very good economical results. And now we are in the phase of, we call it preliminary or zoning design. The part of this design is also environmental impact assessment design. And it's quite a detailed design, which is necessary for the building permit in the Czech Republic. For the first sections, the design, preliminary technical design and area designs are ready, and we are in the environmental impact assessment process now. The process is led by Ministry of Environment, and when it will be done, finished, we can start with the property settlement, with the land acquisitions. We expect it in the very late of this year or in the beginning of the next year. The process of land acquisition means like 2 years, and in the meantime, you would like to start the tender for design, build, maintain, or the PPP. And the beginning of the construction is expected in 2027 or 2028, as you can see on this slide. When we are preparing the designs for the high-speed lines. There will be also new stations on these lines, and that's why we announce also the architectural competitions. And there were already 3 of them, and will be another one. This is the result of the architectural competition for Roudnice nad Labem. That's the new station between Prague and Dresden, closer to Prague. It's like 20 minutes. It will be 20 minutes by train from Prague to Roudnice, to this station. This is another view with the national mountain Říp, which is very close, and it's a national monument, so the station should not be visible from that mountain. The first architectural competition was for the new station very close to Prague, in direction from Prague to Brno and from Prague to Hradec Králové and Wrocław in Poland. That's why it's a quite big station with 2 high-speed lines in the same alignment. This is the view from above. And recently we also announced the winner of the architectural competition for Jihlava high-speed line station, which is just in the middle between Prague and Brno. Is the regional capital with over 50,000 inhabitants, and the winner was announced in March this year. The next competitions will be also for big bridges, because on the last section, which is now tendered for the preliminary technical design, there are big bridges, and we would like to make them architecturally interesting, or to become a landmark of on the high-speed line from Prague to Brno. Because one of the topics of this webinar is also future trains, or the operational concept, and what trains will be needed for our high-speed line. This is the future operational concept for the final stage of our project. It was prepared by Ministry of Transport, and in cooperation with us, it was used for the feasibility studies. And here you can see that there will be like 4 layers or 4 types of train lines. The REX, R and EX trains will be under the PSO of Ministry of Transport or the regions. And the Sprinter will be on the commercial basis. So there are also slots for commercially operated trains with the open access concept. As we are just the infrastructure manager, we can only say what general types of trains will be able to go to our high-speed lines. Our high-speed lines will be fully TSI compatible. So the fully TSI compatible trains with the minimum speed of 200 kilometers per hour will be able to go on our future high-speed lines. So also the current railjets, comfort jets, or other push-pull trains of this kind will be able to go there. Also, current Czech or Polish pendolinos will be able to go there, and also the types of the trains with much higher speeds above 220 or even 300 kilometers per hour. Our high-speed lines will be are designed with the operation speed of 320 kilometers per hour, with the future possibility of the speed of 350 if it will be possible from the economical or energetics point of view. So this is the end of my brief presentation of the project, and I can pass the word to Mr. Žák.
Thank you very much, Mr. Merta. Thank you very much for your overview of this huge project we are expecting in the Czech Republic. Briefly to my person, I'm from the office in Brünn. I'm responsible for sector technology and even mobility. And to be honest, railway is my lifelong passion. So that's why I'm really very happy that I could be a part of our next section, and this is interview with our experts. We have our second expert, that's Mr. Ondrej Čurilla from the law firm Havel Partners. And I think, Mr. Čurilla, the best way how you could be introduced it if you do it by yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Žák. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad that I could be here and our office could be part of this event. It's very important for us to encourage the foreign companies and suppliers to be interested and participate in the Czech and possibly Slovak public procurement. My name is Ondrej Čurilla. I'm a partner at Havel Partners, which is the largest law firm in Czech Republic. We have office also in Slovakia, and newly from 1st of May, we opened also an office in Frankfurt for German and German-speaking clients. And I'm co-managing a group of 55 very specialized lawyers that is serving the public sector and its suppliers. So my specialty is public procurement, PPP projects, concessions, and mostly in the fields of transport, logistics, technology, energy, ICT. So I'm very glad to be here today, and I'm looking forward for the interview, which I hope will be very interesting for all.
Thank you very much for your introduction. Yes, we would like to keep this interview really very lively and even interactive. Let's play a small game. I will put myself into shoes of CEO of an Austrian company, let's say producer of signaling technique. I would like to ask some questions that could be possibly interesting even for our Austrian entrepreneurs. I have to add that our company, our imaginary company, has experience with activities in Western Europe, in overseas, but unfortunately not from the Czech Republic. So we are relatively new, and that's why we need a lot of information. I heard personally something about this huge project, and we see there are some chances for us, but for us it's very important where we can find information. Mr. Merta, could you tell us please where we can find up-to-date information on the current project status? What's the source?
So the best source are our web pages, železnic.cz, and our project has also a new specialized page. It's called vrtky.cz. It was in my presentation in the very end. So that are the two best sources of the current status of our project. And on the pages of our company, there is also a special part dedicated for tenders with the English version of these pages. And our tenders are also announced in European TED. It's the where are all the big tenders announced across the Europe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that means we will find on your homepage all the supplier relevant details. For our audience, don't be worried. All the links to the mentioned home pages we will send you after our webinar. We will prepare for you some summary with the sources, so don't be worried if you don't catch some homepage or something like this. So, as we could see in your presentation, Mr. Merta, a lot of work has been done, but for the next future, for which services and when we could expect the next tenders? If you could unveil us there.
If there will be the PPP tender. We expect to announce it in the June or July of the next year. But the decision is on our government, and it will be based on the conclusion of the PPP feasibility study, which is now in a process, and this decision will be during summer of our government, of the Czech government. During summer, we can expect the decision if we go through design, build, maintain or the PPP tender. But they are quite similar. It's only about financing.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe let's have a look at the situation more from general point of view, Mr. Čurilla. Where and even when is an authority obliged to publish information about new public tenders in the Czech Republic?
Yes, that's a good question. To add what Mr. Merta was saying, the Czech legislation comes from EU legislation. I believe that many of the participants today know the basic principles of the EU directives, and these are in fact obliging the contracting authority to publish every tender that is above threshold, not only in the national journal, but also in the EU journal. Again, the links will be available in the one-pager that we prepared and that will be distributed later. And these are very good and official sources for every tender that is initiated. Very often, and also Správa železnic does reach for this solution sometimes, there is a so-called preliminary publication, which gives a kind of heads up to the interested suppliers that the tender will be initiated in the coming months. So we definitely recommend to also look at the preliminary publications. So these are the two main sources, and there is definitely at least 1 month prior to the deadline for submission of a bid or the request for participation. But in the more complex and larger tenders, the period for bid submission, it's quite longer. It's usually around 2 months. So there should be enough time to prepare.
Mm-hmm. Well, now one for us very important question, because as I mentioned, our imaginary Austrian company has no subsidy in the Czech Republic. From the legal point of view, Mr. Čurilla, is it necessary to have a legal entity in the Czech Republic to participate in public tenders?
No, luckily not. That's one of the principles of the EU procurement law, to arrange for such environment where EU suppliers can participate in EU tenders also outside of their home country without having to rearrange their structure or to be present via some legal entity or branch in the country of the procurement. So this is not necessary, and Austrian or other German-speaking suppliers can participate just as they are, as regards their structure and also as regards their status and qualification, but maybe we can speak on that a little later.
Mm-hmm. Our company is mid-sized company. That means we will probably participate in some tender. According to your experience, Mr. Čurilla, do international consortia play any role in Czech rail tenders? Is it common?
Yes, to our experience, yes. Maybe Mr. Merta will follow up.
Sorry.
But from what we learn, it's definitely the foreign bidders are definitely present. Is it in the form of consortia, sole bidder, or subcontractor? It comes up to the particular tender, but it's definitely rather often that we see a foreign participant, and it's a great addition to the procurement procedures, as to steer the competition, also to add on the expertise and the different views and angles and takes to the solution. So it's definitely a normal thing and should be encouraged more.
Mr. Merta, is there something you would like to add to what Mr. Čurilla said?
I can just add our experience from our design tenders. It was always a consortium of Czech and foreign companies. It was partly because of the references that we wanted to see, because we also wanted the designers to know what the high-speed line is. Yeah. So from the beginning, it's always a consortium of like 60 or 70% Czech companies and 30 or 40% of foreign design companies from France, Britain, Germany, Sweden, almost everywhere from Europe.
Let's say it's really a European project.
It is.
So, our company would work probably most as a subcontractor. That's why for us it's very important who has already won some tenders. Mr. Merta, where we can find this information about the winners of previous tenders?
The winners are also announced on the specialized Správa železnic page for tenders. So there you can find also the companies, and maybe Mr. Čurilla will also add some information, but there is also a specialized governmental page of all the contracts made by the state companies and state institutions in the Czech Republic.
Yeah, Mr. Čurilla?
Yes, there is a, let's say, 4 very useful web pages and links that should be addressing your question. That's the European TED journal for tenders, because not only are the contracting authorities obliged to publish the tender when it starts there, but they are also obliged, and the legal consequences are following if they do not comply with it. The result of the tender, including the name of the winner. The same happens on the national level. So in the national tenders journal, it has to be published as well. And there are 2 national specialities, maybe interesting for the today's participants of our webinar. One is called Contracts Register. That's a Czech speciality where every contract that is exceeding the value of 2,000 euros, so pretty much every contract in the scope of interest of today's participants, has to be published in this register. And the legal consequences of not publishing are fatal. So every contract is pretty much published there. That is concluded by the public sector. So that's another source of very useful information, including the winner of the contract or the supplier. And then last but not least, it's the so-called Act on Free Access to Information, which Mr. Merta, as the representative of the public sector, definitely crossed a few times in his life. And this gives everybody, pretty much a citizen or not, a company or a physical person, the right to request information from the public sector on different agendas and topics that could also include an information or a summary on who was the winner in the last periods, and etc., etc. So that's the last source, and all these links again are listed in the one pager that will be distributed. So hopefully this will be helpful.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Maybe one additional question on this topic is, when we work as a subcontractor or subcontractor, must the bidder anyhow predefine when is submitting his bid the details about his subcontractors?
Well, that depends on the form of participation of the subcontractor. We have so-called qualification subcontractor. That is an entity that helps the main bidder to prove part of the qualification requirements. For example, the references that Mr. Merta was speaking about. In this case, the national law actually prescribes the obligation of the bidder to identify such subcontractor. The identification is the regular name, address, and the ID. But not only that, the subcontractor then has to also provide its so-called basic qualification. That is some kind of elementary package of suitability to participate in Czech public tenders, and then consists of no criminal record in given areas, no outstanding tax arrears, no outstanding social security and health insurance payments, and the subject cannot be in liquidation and has to be listed in company's registry. So this is the elementary set of prerequisites to participate in Czech tenders. And also the subcontractor that is proving part of qualification has to comply with it. Then there is the other situation when a subcontractor is not proving part of the qualification, but will in fact take part of the performance of the contract given the bidder that is related to wins. And in these cases, the law does not require by default the identification of such subcontractor, but the contracting authority in given case may require it as extra requirement to identify such subcontractor and or to identify the part of the contract that such subcontractor will perform. Of course, this can bring in practice slight collisions, because not very often is it easy to identify the exact part of the contract that the subcontractor will take part on. So we don't find it too great solution, but yeah, the law gives this right to the contracting authorities. Sometimes they require it, so it's better to accept it and try to go on with it.
Yeah. Okay, definitely. It's a huge project where are participating many companies, so it cannot be easy, I would say. So let's move from this part. We learn now where to find information about the status of the project, and now let's come to, let's say, essential part of railway business, and that's safety. Safety criteria, they are very strict and must be met, definitely. Proof of this kind of qualification are certificates and other documents. Mr. Merta, is there any overview of certificates that the technology suppliers need to know, and where they could find information what they must have?
I will also provide a link to the specialized page dedicated to this issue. I know that there are requirements for the parts of the railway substructure, like turnouts, rails, sleepers, and so on. And also we have special regulations or standards for the signaling and control system, and it's usually, but it's usually only in Czech, so it's quite a little bit more tricky than our tender documentation.
Well, by speaking,
but I will provide a link. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. by speaking about language, our imaginary company has certificates and other documents issued by Austrian authorities, German authorities, and international authorities. Mr. Čurilla, maybe a question to you. Are Austrian or international certificates in general recognized by Czech authorities, or is there a necessity of additional certification in the Czech Republic?
The default regime should be to recognize the national certification and the prerequisites of the bidder as such, as I was already mentioning. But of course, there are national special requirements or internal technical requirements that Mr. Merta was also mentioning. And then it may occur that in given tenders, it will be necessary to acquire some additional proof, additional certificate. But the general rule should be that you should be qualified in case you are qualified in your home country. And if a certificate proves certain requirement to be fulfilled, then it should suffice to provide the certificate that you have in your homeland. So the general approach should be quite generous, but of course then it depends on the given procurement and the rules preset by the contracting authority. And in very technically complex and specific procurements, which Správa železnic often is realizing, there may be a few segments that have to be taken in Czech Republic specifically. But then again, the procedure is not just one use only, because you can then rely on the certificate or the prerequisite for a longer time, and you can reuse it in several or multiple tenders. So that's a good news.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually general for all the upcoming tenders.
Mm-hmm. It's quite usual, not only in public tenders, but even in the industry, that the suppliers must be registered and validated in some internal system. Mr. Merta, does Správa železnic have such a registration and validation system?
We have it, but it's not necessary to be there. But if you do it, you will not. We will not ask you again and again in another tenders for the same papers, for the same documents.
That means it's recommend. You can recommend it to be there if you want to work for longer
to participate
time.
Again and again. Yes.
So that means there is a system, and the registration and so on. It's a very complicated process, or it's manageable.
I guess it's more for Mr. Čurilla, because it's a general register of, it's a Ministry of Development, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are two ways. One is what Mr. Merta mentioned. It's a list of qualified suppliers that is run by Ministry of Regional Development. Again, we have listed the link for more information on that. And that serves for all the Czech tenders, not only of Správa železnic, but any tender that will be issued in Czech Republic. Once you are enrolled in this list of qualified suppliers, you can simply, by providing a certificate, which is a matter of 1 minute to generate it, apply for the tender, and you do not have to go through the paperwork every single time you participate in it. So that's very handful. And then there is a specific system of qualification that Správa železnic very innovatively has implemented a few years ago. It's maybe for a different segment than we speak today. And that's their own approach, which works similarly. I have, I think, also included a link to this one, and that works pretty much the same way. It takes a few weeks maybe for a foreign supplier to get the paperwork together, but then it saves so much time in the future because you are just relying on this and refreshing it, updating it every once in a while. So definitely I would recommend it, and it's a very useful thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. With the certificates and other documents, we can prove our expertise, but for the Czech market, it's definitely necessary to meet some legal obligation and prove company integrity. You, Mr. Čurilla, have already mentioned some of them, but could you briefly repeat it? What's necessary to prove by the Austrian companies?
Yes, sure. It should be the set of prerequisites that proves the basic qualification, it's called, and that consists of certificate of no criminal records that is acquired in the home country, so in Austria, for both the company and the statutory body. Then there is the certificate issued by the tax office that the bidder does not have tax arrears, outstanding tax arrears. That's acquired in Austria and in Czech Republic. For Czech Republic, we have listed a link and some short information on where you can acquire it and so on. The same goes for the Social Security Office, which is in Czech in Prague for foreign bidders. So the process is kind of described in their webpage and more information found in the link. And last but not least, there is a solemn declaration on no liquidation and regarding health insurance that's just signed by the bidder, and a certificate from company's register is provided too. So this is the basic set of documents. What's important to say is, because sometimes we see foreign bidders go on and get all these documents, it takes few weeks, it takes their energy and concentration maybe from the bid process itself. European Union and European procurement directives implemented a thing called European Single Procurement Document. And that's an online form which you can fill out, and it takes maybe an hour. But this serves as a so-called green card or a pass to enter the procurement procedure anywhere in European Union. You do not have to run around the local offices and acquire the particular documents. You can just fill out this form. And if you would be selected at the end of the procedure, then yes, you have to have these documents ready, but it saves you a few months. And if you are not selected, then you didn't waste the energy and time for it without any result. So again, a link for the European Single Procurement Document is in the one pager, and hopefully it will be helpful, especially in situations when you are running late, you do not have enough time to acquire all the documents. This can be a very good help.
Okay, that's very, very good, this recommendation. Well, now we have information about, let's say, about the project, about the necessary certificates and documents. Let's say our Austrian company has decided to prepare their bid, and that's why it's important to know where to find the really tender documentation with full details. Mr. Merta, could you tell us these sources, as you mentioned before, even there is the detailed tender documentation for the respective stage?
In the European and Czech Journal of Tenders, there is a link to the mentioned page of Správa železnic, where there are all the tender documentation with all the dates, terms, requirements, everything. The page itself is also in English. And the tender documentation for high-speed lines for our tenders is usually also in English, or also the architectural competitions are also international. They are also with the English version of the documentation. So
okay,
it's from the European and national journal, you can get to the specialized Czech Správa železnic page.
So that's great. So no worries about the language that we wouldn't understand. But how is it with our bid? When we prepare our bid, is it necessary to prepare it in Czech or in English or other languages? And when
The bid is always in Czech.
Okay. Fine. That means we will engage a translator for our bit, but that's okay. Maybe Mr. Čurilla, you have experience from international environment. Could you tell us, are there in this tender procedure some big differences or major peculiarities between Czech Republic and, for example, Germany or Austria, or it's the same?
I think there is still more formalism. It's in Czech procurement is more formal that you can experience as a bidder than maybe the German procedures that we are witnessing in the cooperation of Správa železnic and Deutsche Bahnnetz on the high-speed line projects. And the more formal approach maybe leads to slower procurement, sometimes more strict situations on exclusion of a bidder, and etc., etc. But on this stage, it's very good to say that Správa železnic is one of the very, let's say, open-minded and forward-thinking contracting authorities. So their tenders are one of the best ones in Czech Republic as regards the formalism or no formalism. Mr. Merta was speaking about the architectural competitions. Správa železnic has the system of qualification, which again is a very efficient tool, and other approaches that are allowing for the procedure to be more similar to private tenders than the strict and formal public procurement tenders. One good thing that I wanted to mention, and it's very, let's say, lately trending in Czech Republic, is the preliminary market consultation. That's a dialogue that contracting authorities in Czechia very often lead lately with relevant market players, also including foreign companies. And that's a very good opportunity for anybody who wants to initiate some different approach and look at the project, because sometimes the market knows better than the contracting authority. That would be actually a good opportunity to maybe propose the possibility to bid in English. The law allows for it, and in case there is a project that makes sense in it, it could be mentioned in the preliminary market consultation, and maybe one day it will change. But on the other hand, we have to understand the contracting authority, where there's many people working with the documents and need to understand it also. So.
Well, good news. We are now in the position that we are preparing, or we will prepare our bid, and as we know, sometimes things go wrong. What are the usual reasons for disqualification from a tender, Mr. Merta or Mr. Čurilla? Who wants to start?
It happens sometimes. But as far as I know, during the preparation of the high-speed lines, it was always the, how to say it, the bidder submitted the bid wrong, in a wrong way. It's sometimes like the two envelopes. So he changed the envelopes. So we opened the anonymous one, and there was everything, like something like this.
Yeah, but that's so more formal, mistake, not factual,
yeah, formal
mistake, but formal.
Usually there were no mistakes like from the, how to say it, like technical requirements, market requirements. No, but usually it was something like this, the bad usage of the system.
Yeah. And Mr. Čurilla, by speaking about mistakes, could you maybe tell us from your experience the typical mistakes foreign companies are doing by participating in tenders in the Czech Republic?
Yeah, it would be coming maybe later than necessary to the process. So then running out of time, it's crucial to have the formalities ready. And that can result into not precisely formulated content, and that can be a trouble. Other thing can be coming not equipped enough. Sometimes the requirement does not sound so complicated, and the supplier doesn't ask and interprets it in other ways. So in my recommendation, everything lays in the preparation phase and some systematical approach to the bidding process, because once you take the effort, it can be used repeatedly.
Yeah, thank you. We slowly moved to the part we can call tips and tricks. I hope the tricks are not necessary, but anyway, tips are always very good. Mr. Merta, as let's say conclusion of our interview, do you have some tips on what potential suppliers should focus on when designing their solutions for the Czech high-speed lines?
For the design of the technical solution, we don't require something special. It's not a rocket science. It's a usual high-speed line as known from France or Spain or Italy. So it's a TSI compatible, usual European high-speed line. So we don't we are not inventing a new wheel. So
okay, that's
do as
great.
usual.
That's great news, even for our imaginary company, because we have some experience, and we will be very happy to bring it even to this project. Gentlemen, it was from my list the very last question. I even leave the seat of the CEO of an Austrian company. Well, I'm quite sorry, because it was fine. It was very nice and made fun. But still, please stay in our webinar, because we are coming to our section that is called Q&A, questions and answers. And here is my colleague in Prague, Elisabeth Mindelberger, and you had opportunity to ask questions for our experts. Elisabeth, do we have some questions?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. We have a couple of questions on our Q&A platform. And since time is already running out, I will come straight to the first question. Mr. Merta, I'm not sure if it's secret, but in case you can talk about it, how many euros were invested last year in the preparation of high-speed rail projects in Czech Republic?
It's definitely not a secret. It's a public information. It was about 50 million euro in 2023, and the same amount is expected this year. And in the next years, it will significantly grow with the land acquisition and with the beginning of the construction phase.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's about 50 million euro a year, and it will grow in the next few years very significantly.
That's good news. Maybe a second question about your projects. Someone asked, compared, like in France and in Spain, the high-speed stations are quite a bit outside of the center of the towns. Do you have any concept for Czech Republic to make the new stations more accessible?
The high-speed lines will be, as usual, connected to the nodes, like to Prague, Brno, or Ostrava. But yes, these new stations will be outside of the cities. But we are designing them with the connection to the regional lines. We always with the highway exit, park and ride facilities, bike and ride facilities, regional bus station. We try to connect them as good as possible to the region, to the vicinity of the station, with the cooperation of the towns and villages around.
Okay, so with as many public and private transport possibilities as possible.
Yes.
Okay, maybe Mr. Čurilla, let's come to some formal questions. First one is, how long does it take for a foreign supplier to do all the paperwork related to tender in Czech Republic?
Well, that is different coming up to what procurement procedure, what is the subject matter. But just to get the local paperwork for the basic qualification, that may be needing 2 to 3 weeks is not too long, and the job can be done pretty fastly, but offices have certain time to issue the certificates, so 2 to 3 weeks. But otherwise, to our experience, everything is manageable within a month. So if you come to the deadline at the beginning, you should be fine, and you should be ready to supply the bid or submit the bid in mašle bow tie, as we say in Czech Republic.
But it's important to know it quite early, right in the beginning.
Very much, yes.
One more specific question, maybe to you, Mr. Čurilla. One company representative said that in recent tender it was requested to provide employees that are member of the Czech Chamber of Engineers. In this case, is it sometimes the case that foreign EU chambers are accepted? And I don't know if Mr. Merta can then add if it's the case for the upcoming tenders.
Yes, this is a big topic in Czech Republic because there is a national specific regulation on the technical engineers and project ends, and I don't think this would be the nowadays approach. It used to be in the past that contracting authorities were requiring the enrollment with the Czech Chamber of Technical Engineers at the beginning of the tender, so in the bid. But now the approaches of the contracting authorities loosened up a lot, so it may be enough to provide the enrollment at the end of the tender when selected, and appropriate amount of time should be given for such process. So yeah, even though this question is sometimes stressful, the times are better now, and it should be manageable even for foreign companies to actually acquire these. Of course, other thing is to prepare for it systematically and have it ready for the tenders in the future.
Okay, I don't know if you want to add something on this, Mr. Merta.
I don't think it's necessary. That was all the informations because yeah, it's the legislatives on national level.
Good. Okay. So let me squeeze in one last question for the last minute. Maybe to both of you as well. Maybe Mr. Čurilla can start again about ESG reporting. How important is it? Is it compulsory? Is it recommendable?
Well, the Czech Public Procurement Act sets out as one of its principles that the public procurement proceeds ESG compliant. The social and environmental reliable principles have to be implemented in every procurement if suitable. So whatever you take from that, but we actually see quite often that the public tenders include it as a part of the qualification or a selection criteria, or as a part of contractual or technical requirements, but it's not a unified approach. There is not one certificate that a supplier could have to address it and to be fine. So it's case by case.
Mm-hmm. So Mr. Merta, in the upcoming tenders, will it play a huge role?
If we are talking about the design, build, maintain or the PPP concession, it will be necessary because the part of the budget will be also covered by the European Investment Bank, and they require it or will require it to lend us some money. It will be necessary in a very near future. And also a new regulation of the European Union is also coming in force this year, I guess, for the reporting of the ESG.
Thank you. Thank you for the additional answers. Unfortunately, we are already over time, so I have to stop with the Q&A questions. But I would like to encourage all of the listeners today to just drop us an email if you have additional questions about the upcoming Czech tenders. I would like to end the Q&A part by asking my colleague what event could be a good idea to prepare for the tenders and for participation in the planned projects.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. As you can see, our next big event is Rail Business Days in Ostrava. That's trade fair, quite traditional trade fair, where really the whole railway industry in the Czech Republic and even apart from Slovakia and Poland is meeting. We are there with a group of Austrian companies. Fortunately and unfortunately, we are fully booked for this year, but it's definitely interesting to participate next year. But what's important is in June, from 11th till 13th of June, and it's for sure worth to visit it. If you are interested, just contact us and we will give you more information. So, and when looking at the watch, we are a bit late. It shouldn't be the case by speaking about railways. So I have to express my thanks to our experts, Mr. Jiří Merta and Mr. Ondrej Čurilla. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, for your openness by answering of our questions. It was really a big pleasure to prepare the whole event together with you and even to get this information, interesting information. And big thank you, even ladies and gentlemen in our audience. I hope you spent nice 1 hour in our company, and well, I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.